Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. We're not meeting for the moment in St. Paul each Sabbath, but we will when COVID-19 passes over. Be blessed in the meantime. This is about coincidences and herbs in Bible prophecy. It's interesting in April of 2020 that the watchers are talking about a fire that's burning closer and closer to Chernobyl. And if you remember back to 1986, you see that Chernobyl was the Wormwood, that's what it means in Russian. It was in the Ukraine, and it was the site of a nuclear reactor that melted down. It's just interesting. The fallout happened after that, and I'll show you pictures of the burned out buildings. But then nothing happened until right now. And it's very interesting just to notice the dates. So let's look at it in terms of when it happened in 1986. So that was April 26th. And so that would have been the 17th day of Nisan. So that would be the second day of the Omer. And there are three festivals in the spring. There's Passover. Yeshua was crucified on Passover. Unleavened bread, that was the whole week where he was tested, basically by the people and crucified, and then they resurrected on first fruits. All occurred during that week. If you're an Orthodox Jew, you will call it all Passover. You don't really want to talk about first fruits because it sounds too much like Yeshua. But anyway, April 26th of 1986 was the 17th day of Nisan. But then also, I show you a picture in the middle here of a sword, a judgment sword, hanging over Washington, D.C. in southern New Jersey back on the 17th day of Nisan, 5774, which is 2014, which is the second day after the first blood moon of that tetrad. So there was Passover, Sukkot of 2014, 2015. It's just interesting that I noticed that sign occurred on that same day. Just interesting. So keep in mind also, so this is a first fruit sign. Potentially, this particular day would have been a Sunday or a Saturday evening when Yeshua would have resurrected, like first fruits. And so it's just interesting that was the time that Chernobyl, Wormwood, happened. And Chernobyl happens to pop up with the Bible. So let's test it out. Let's see if my Bible knowledge works, if I'm twisting prophecy, if I'm twisting the news, if anything that I'm saying is truthful. So first, let's start out with the first citation of Chernobyl or Wormwood. So this is Moses and some kind of a tree. And could it be a wormwood tree? We'll find out. And when they came to Mara, they could not drink of the waters of Mara, for they were bitter, Pikria in the Greek. Therefore, and this is written in Hebrew, but we also have the Septuagint, so that's now how I know it's bitter, which is Pikria. Therefore, the name of it was called Mara, and the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree of some sort. It could be the bitter tree, it could be a wormwood tree. And he cast it into the waters, and the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. And he said, If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his eyes, and wilt give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, and will put none of the diseases, plagues, upon thee, which I have put upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. So he heals, and he heals with a tree being dropped in the water, and it turns the water sweet, these bitter waters sweet. Could this be wormwood? Let's look at then the third trumpet, and we're not close to the third trumpet yet, people. We are moving along through the seals, but we are not up to the third trumpet. But it's a precursor anyway. It's a coincidence, and God likes us to notice these things. So in chapter 8 of Revelation, we see the third angel sounded his shofar, and a great star, Megas Astarte, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky onto a third of the rivers and onto the springs of water. That's Mayim Kayim, that would be living water. The name of the star was bitterness, wormwood. And a third of the water became bitter, pikrino, and so that is that bitter water. That's in the Greek. And many people died from the water that had been turned bitter. So that's coming up at some point in time here. The star will fall from the sky and turn the waters bitter. But it's interesting that Moses dealt with that bitterness of water back then, and that was as they were leaving Egypt. So it wasn't an Egyptian plague. But then God does say, if you're not good, if you are good, I will keep these plagues away from you. Otherwise, I'll give you the plagues. So once again, I believe we've gone through seal 1, 2, 3. We're about to hit seal 4. Then the seventh seal would open up the trumpets. And as you can see, almost in the middle of this document, the third trumpet is really in the first 3.5 years, and that's Wormwood. And that's what we're discussing today. And then the last three of the trumpets are the woes. You add those together with the seven bowls, you have 10. And the two witnesses pop up during between the sixth and the seventh seal, and they leave at about the midpoint of the Great Tribulation, just a little bit before. So we're expecting these things to occur, but that doesn't mean that we can't see signs of them right now. Like tonight, we're going to have the Leonid meteor shower occurring. Well, that's like the sixth seal. We have famines going on worldwide, but they've been going on for years, but they're worse now. Well, that's a sign of the third seal. So these are precursors. Just get used to it. It doesn't mean that it is. It just means that you're supposed to be watching for it. You're always supposed to be aware of the Bible. So this is a literal Greek translation from Revelation chapter 8. And we already read it, but I'll go through it one more time. The third angel sounded his trumpet. And keep in mind, when he sounded that trumpet, that's Selpingus, and that would be based on I'm sorry, a tekiah, an ingathering sound. So it would be a long sounding trumpet sound. And if it was a megas, it would be the final one. That would be the loudest of the trumpets. And that would be the ingathering, the rapture, we could call it. But in this case, it's just an ingathering. This is, if it's just one trumpet in this case, that would mean that the leaders are supposed to get together and convene for a meeting of some sort. Not a war meeting, though. And it fell out of the heavens, a great star, and it was burning like a torch, and it fell onto a third of the rivers and upon the springs of water. That's Mayim Kayim again. And the name of the star was called Wormwood. Absinthe. Absinthe. What does that mean? That sounds like booze to me, doesn't it? All right, we'll see that in a second. It became a third of the waters into absinthe again, wormwood. And there's the picture of the bottle down below there. It's a typical booze. It's a licorice flavored, anise flavored booze. And many of the men died from the waters because they were made bitter. There's the pikria word. And that is in the Greek, and obviously there's more involved in it than just that. But it is that bitter word. And so it pops up throughout the Bible, all throughout the Bible. So now let's move on to what seems to match up with where we are right now. And it's another application of this bitter word and wormwood. So this is from Jeremiah 23. But in the prophets of Jerusalem, I have seen a horrible thing. They commit adultery, live in lies, so encouraging evildoers that none returns from his sin. For me, they have all become like Sodom, and inhabitants like Gomorrah. And therefore, this is what Adonai Tezvaot, the God of war, says concerning the prophets. I will feed them bitter, pikron, wormwood, and make them drink poisonous water. For ungodliness is spread throughout all the land. From the prophets of Jerusalem, Adonai Tezvaot says, do not listen to the words of the prophets who are prophesying to you. They're making you act foolishly, telling you visions from their own minds, and not from the mouth of Adonai. So in this case, notice, prophetically speaking, across the whole world, no prophet got COVID-19 right. No prophet. And so they're all trying to say, oh, yeah, well, I vaguely stated it. That doesn't work in prophecy. It's either right or wrong, and they're all wrong. Just keep that in mind. There is something that matches up with what's going on right now with the bitterness of these prophets and how all of them got this wrong. All of them got it wrong. So now, what's going forward here? President Trump and others are saying, hey, why don't you just take a Z-Pack, some zinc glucosamine, and the hydroxychloroquine, and you'll get the health that you want. Well, it looks like we've known about this for a long period of time. This is an antifungal tea. It's also basically, I'll show you that it's a wormwood situation. It's a water bitter type of a thing. And it heals from plagues, but it always has. And so basically there's the plant in Chernobyl, and there's the plant again. But it was a bitter nuclear accident. So basically, wormwood, sweet wormwood, artemisinin, it's a cheap drug. It's a cheap way that we've had for thousands of years to kill parasites, to fight cancer, to fight other things. And it's under many, many different names, including sweet Annie, sweet sagewort, sweet wormwood, wormweed. And so The World Health Organization has been recommending this as an anti-malarial drug for years and years and years. And it's, $7 for a big bag of tea. It's cheap, and it's a cheap way to stay healthy. So it's just interesting. It fights cancer again, asthma, parasites, other things like that. It's just a wonderful drug, but it's cheap, and that's the problem. It's not big pharma. So we've had it for thousands of years. But 400 years ago, they knew that it cured malaria in Peru. So they started grabbing the bark from plants, and that was a source of quinine. So the British figured that out, and they realized, oh, this is really good for you. So they started to mix, various drinks. And actually, I'm drinking some right now, tonic water right now. It's got quinine in it. It's quite good for you. Hmm, quite tasty. So anyway, they've known about it for years. Then we came up with this Chinese tea, Artemisia, that is King Hao, that really does a nice job of healing people. So here's a report on the left-hand side about all of these wonderful drugs that just come from these various natural plants. So Big Pharma doesn't like this. They don't like tonic water. We really want to give you this big drug that's going to fix everything. Well, it looks like you could get by. We don't need the big sponsorship. We don't need the big drug companies. We don't need the big advertisements. We don't need Big Pharma. We need something that is going to naturally heal us. That's what we want. And there are holistic doctors dying. Now, I'm not saying that Big Pharma is killing them, but they're not helping them. They don't like them at all. And so, and I'm not going to comment much on 5G, but it is interesting that that could be causing some death health too. So just be mindful of that. Now, this is a conservative article that I clipped out real quick, and it's ripping on Fauci. But I just wanted to point out that the conservatives are questioning that obviously this came from bats, but not from the wet market. So it looks like somebody created this virus. And then they're questioning Bill Gates and WHO and the connections between all these big name people are friends. And it's kind of bizarre how they're all friends with Big Pharma, friends with big business, friends with the WHO, friends with all sorts of strange things. And then also point number 11, 12, 13 is really the economy. It seems like all these people are wealthy, and so they really don't care if we work and have jobs. They really they don't want anyone to die at all, and so as a result, they could kill the whole economy. They could choke it, but they're all billionaires. So do they really care? So there's a bitterness going on. I want you to see the coincidences between the bitterness of what God is causing right now and the bitterness of that third trumpet that's coming at some point in time in our future. And so this is a bitterness story here where a lady said, I bought this wormwood tea and it's disgusting. I'm disappointed. I want my money back. And she got her money back. But it is a bitter taste, but it's good for you. And so a lot of people find it to be very tasteless or gross. But you know what? It's a wonderful mixture that can keep people alive through this time. And so I'm drinking my Schweppes quinine water right now, tonic water, and that's very healthy. And I'm going to buy some more of it too, sugar free. And then I'm going to be buying some of this tea, and I might buy some ouzo too. That fights it off too. All of these things are homeopathic, and I recommend whenever you can get homeopathic things. So buy some of this wonderful tea up here. It comes from China, but anyway, it's not going to taste good, but it's going to be good for you. So this is a possibility of how things happened. It's my idea, my interpretation. Take it for what it's worth. China developed COVID-19 to crush the Hong Kong protests, but all the while they knew that they had sweet wormwood tea available to them, this plant. They've had it for thousands of years that could potentially heal and keep their executives healthy in most cases. And so then I think they added sweet wormwood tea to their diets to help the wealthy people survive through this time frame. And then now, as a result of that, China will dominate the world because they recovered first and better. So once again, the teas are $7.77, or buy yourself some absinthe booze, or drink some tonic water. These are cheap homeopathic ways to get through this COVID-19 and also get some zinc, glucosamine. And the Z pack, if you want to, that's fine. This is a lady growing her own not artissima. Okay, this is the chemical equation. There's the Schweppes stating that it's natural quinine. And then ouzo has some of those properties in it because you're going to have wormwood and anise and fennel in it. And it's all good for you. So drink some ouzo. Cheers. Um, so this is off the track, but I just want to show it because these coincidences are interesting, and I had one slide. Is it possible that in the fourth seal, that John is warning us about the fact that if you get sick from this chloros horse, this green horse, that you'd want to take a green bath in magnesium chloride? It looks like they had green baths years ago, thousands of years ago, and people became healthy as a result of it. So is wormwood a hint that you're supposed to take the wormwood tea and drink it and drop it in your water and things like that, like Moses did? They basically drank what I believe was like a wormwood tea to heal from the sickly waters. And so in this case, is this good for you to soak in a green bath with magnesium chloride or with any of these yellowish, greenish salts? Maybe so. So keep it in mind. Sometimes the Bible has the strangest hints. Remember Timothy, and he feels sickly, and Paul says, "Hey, take a little wine, for your stomach." So just keep it in mind. That's how the Bible works. Sometimes there's hints. So once again, I'm a firm believer that Seal 1 is opened, Seal 2 is opened, Seal 3, we're starting to notice it now. And then Seal 4, we are not there yet because there's no way COVID-19 will kill 1.94444 billion. Okay, it just won't happen. So of these four signs, you would need about 450, 480 million people to die from each one of these four. And so the supernatural sword, it killed 2 times in the Bible. Keep that in mind. The Assyrians died as a result of it. I think it was 185,000. Drought, limo, death, thanatos, and then biological warfare is therion. So we expect these signs to hit at some point in time. Um, Keep this in mind. This is what Zero Hedge is saying. There are mutations coming of COVID, and they could be much worse. So there's this confusing paradox going on right now. Dr. Fauci said there is no evidence of deadly mutations, yet these researchers have found exactly that there are mutations coming. And there is a prophet out there, and I don't know if you believe him or not, but his name is Sadhu Sundar Severage, and he says, no, 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 it's going to be much worse next time around. And God works that way. If you really dig into Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28, you're going to see that God says, if you don't repent this time, I'll send a worse plague, and if you don't repent that time, I'll send a worse plague. Now, Christians believe in grace, 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 but God does send plagues. Every single time in the Bible, you'll see a plague is sent by God. Either he's allowing it to occur or he's sending it, but he's involved in all of those cases. The oddest one is when he says, who will be a lying spirit in the mouth of the prophets? So keep that in mind. The deadliest mutations in the Zhejiang patients had also been found in most patients across Europe. So the deadliest mutations are in Europe. The milder strains seem to be in Washington state of America right now. So just notice that there's different mutations going on. And the next strain, according to some prophetic people that I happen to like, say it's going to be much worse next time. So let's look at some disasters over the years since 1900 to 2016 and see the drought. That's limo, according to how the Bible works. That seems to kill many, many, many millions of people. Thanatos or therion. Thanatos would mean death, plague, epidemic. Therion could be lower forms of animal life, which is they're both. All of these are found in Revelation 6:8, the fourth seal, and that's many millions of people due to epidemics. Seismos can kill some millions and billions of people. Floods are dangerous, and floods are listed vaguely in the Bible. So just, is it biblical? Yeah, the fourth seal is biblical, and 2 of the 4 are listed in this. So is China going to pay for this? No, this article really states that it's very difficult to prosecute China for what they've killed. And so, yeah, how do you sue them and for what and how? How do you get the money out of China? So keep this in mind. Stalin once said, a single death is a tragedy and a million deaths is a statistic. Just notice that. It's unfortunately, we as the people are just regarded as statistics. I believe Seal 4 is yet to come. Seal 5 is yet to come. Seal 6 will be like Sodom and Gomorrah in Egypt, with burning figs and earthquakes occurring and things like that. So that's the end of the video. Be blessed, be safe, be careful. God bless. Bye-bye.